One of Arizona's oldest public charter schools is under fire for a controversial textbook that they're currently using. Now, unfortunately, this is not the first time we learned of some ridiculous textbooks being used in America, but at least sometimes when we cover stories like this, the stupid textbooks are being used in private schools. This time, again, it's largely a tax-funded situation. So the school's name is Heritage Academy, and the book that they're using, one of many books by the same author, might I add, is from an activist named Cleon Skousen. He's the author, and it's called The 5,000-Year Leap and The Making of America. So those are the two separate books. So what's wrong with these books? Well, according to Raw Story, it, quote, pushes Christian nation propaganda and other religious teachings on impressionable young adults. In fact, one of the prominent Tea Party organizations in the country, of the roughly 14,000 Tea Party groups there are nowadays, declared this book to be, quote, a handbook of Tea Party ideals. Now let's pause there. Imagine for a second there was a textbook that you had some progressive group come forward and the leader says, we love this textbook and this history book because it's a handbook of progressive ideals. Fox News would cover that for roughly 3 weeks straight, wall-to-wall coverage. Oh my God, they're indoctrinating our kids, they're pushing bullshit into their minds, they've corrupted the youth, and they're doing indoctrination and propaganda. But for whatever reason, when it's the Tea Party, Fox News is strangely silent, and of course, progressive media doesn't pick it up because they suck at their job. But a Tea Party leader says, yeah, this textbook, which has history, is a handbook of Tea Party ideals. Not only that, Glenn frickin' Beck came out and endorsed this book, or these books, I should say, and said, these are great, man. We should teach our kids this stuff, so it should be a gigantic red flag. And anybody who's responsible for regulating the school situation and the textbook situation around the country, especially if they're getting tax dollars, they need to get on this. So some brilliant people over at the Arizona Republic decided to actually read some of the 1,200 pages of the books to see what they find. And, oh boy, was it worse than anyone could have ever imagined. So the author writes, quote, there's a systematically racist view. I'm sorry, this is from the article about the book and what the author says. Quote, there's a systematically racist view of the Civil War, adding that a long description of slavery in the book claims that the state of slavery was beneficial to African Americans and that Southern racism was caused by the intrusion of Northern abolitionists and advocates of equality for the freed slaves. That appears to be fairly damning. Now, somebody could respond, if they're inclined to defend this, and say, well, look, that's just the article pointing out their interpretation of what the textbook says. But what does the textbook actually say? Just to give you one example, here's a direct passage from one of the textbooks. Quote, if black children ran naked, it was generally from choice. And when the white boys had to put on shoes and go away to school, they were likely to envy the freedom of their colored playmates. The book literally argues that white people were jealous of the freedom of the black kids running around naked. What you talking about, Willis? That is absurd. There are multiple passages like this, too. It's a theme. Again, the theme, as pointed out by Raw Story, is a systematically racist view of the Civil War, blaming the North. We've talked about this before. They describe the North and the Civil War as, oh, it's the War of Northern Aggression. The War of Northern Aggression? Maybe it was the war of slave masters' aggression on their slaves and the North saving the day. Have you considered that? Have you considered slavery was fucking wrong and somebody needed to stop your punk asses from continuing to do it? But no, a textbook being taught in the United States of America in the year 2014 is essentially saying, well, the blacks had it great, man. In fact, white people were jealous of just how free they were. This is well beyond what should be acceptable. You know, I understand that there's going to be some different interpretations of history. There's always going to be some different interpretations of history. But there is a spectrum wherein something is considered educational and something is considered to make sense. I'm a reasonable guy. Other people are reasonable. We get it if you don't see certain things in history exactly the same way, if you don't see the fall of communism the exact same way, and you might give more credit to Reagan than to other people, and you might say, oh, it was all him. Whatever. I get it that there are different interpretations at different times, and there are legitimate disagreements and discussions to be had. This is not one of them. This is not one of them. What we're doing is we're handicapping our kids. And then when this generation of dumbasses grows up and we don't end up getting, the inevitable patents that come in certain scientific fields, and we don't end up being on the forefront of medicine, and we don't have the new technology, and we end up watching our infrastructure crumble as it is right now, and our country ends up devolving and getting worse and worse, and we have more and more idiots like the movie Idiocracy. Well, we don't need to wonder why. We don't need to wonder why, because we made an active choice to use textbooks in certain places and in certain states, publicly funded, that made our little kids absolute knuckle draggers.